Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Hotter Than Hell podcast. This is your last stop on the crazy train of hard rock and heavy metal. So sit back, buckle in, and hang on. Here we go.
Hello everybody, this is the Hotter Than Hell podcast. We are here to bring you our world of hard rock and heavy metal. My name is Steve Wright, I will be your host, and I'm here with my co-host, Brian Chapman, but you can call him BC. Say hello, BC.
Hello everyone.
Alright, we will be discussing a wide variety of topics in the heavy metal and hard rock genre, and even dipping into some classic rock. What we're going to do now is, this is our episode we're calling Episode 0, and we are going to give you guys an introduction to us, where we came from, who we are, and how we got into this crazy world that we like to call our music. BC, tell me, how'd you get going with this stuff? Initial bands, who got you into them, and, you know, where to take you from there?
Initial bands, probably back when I was 7 years old. Kiss. My mother was going to nursing school.
Judy.
She was, of course, studying with a friend of hers, and her son was much older at the time than me, and he was into Kiss, Priest. And that's how I got into Kiss. That was my initial exposure to music, you could say. That's
cool. And I gotta say, I remember when we were in grade school, I was 2 years ahead of BC in school. I remember a kid coming up to me in school and saying, hey, you know, and they knew I was a big Kiss fan, and they said, hey, you know what, I know someone that's even a bigger Kiss fan than you. You know, kind of like the na-na-na-na-na back and forth that goes on in grade school. And I'm like, who's this kid, you know? And you know, they bring me up to this, you know, younger kid. I mean, now, no offense, BC, but, you know, he had a little more gray hair than I do.
A little bit.
And I say, you know, someone told me you were a huge Kiss fan. And then, like, you totally took the wind out of my sail. You said, yeah, you know what? Well, I like Cheap Trick better. And I'm like, who the fuck are they? I'm like, I don't know who they are. And do you remember that? Do you recall that at all?
Faintly, not clearly, but the Cheap Trick part, yes. Because it was Kiss, 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 and then I think at the same time, I Want You to Want Me became the big popular radio hit at the time.
Yeah. You know, and at that time, for me, Kiss was everything. And I'll give you a little background for myself. There was always some kind of music in my house. I remember my parents had different albums and stuff like that, like Barry Manilow. And hey, I mean, that stuff's still decent to this day. I took my wife to see Barry Manilow for her birthday, I believe, one year. And it was great. You know, he's a great entertainer, and, you know,
And the ladies love him.
Oh, the ladies love him, absolutely. I remember my parents had also an Elvis live in, I think it's Aloha from Hawaii, and I listened to that record all the time on our huge stereo in our hallway. That, you know, when your stereo was an actual piece of furniture that, you know, it's the size of a Volkswagen nowadays, you know. And I used to sit in the hallway and just listen to that Elvis record over and over again. One day I was over at my buddy's house, Shane Peregrine. We were kind of snooping in his brother's room, and I was going through his albums. And I came across this album. It was called Kiss Destroyer. And I looked at the cover. It's like, whoa, what the hell what is this? And my buddy's like, oh, yeah, that's a band that my brother listens to. I'm like, well, let's put it on. So my very first Kiss song, and it's still probably my favorite song to this day, Detroit Rock City. And, you know, when you get that intro on Destroyer, you had all the dishwater going and the keys and all that stuff. He starts the car and pumps the gas and gets it going, and you know, and you can hear Rock and Roll Night playing in the background, which at that time was their big song, which I didn't know. You know, it could have been anybody playing in the background. And then the chords start, I'm like, holy shit, like, wow, this is, and like that moment really changed my life right there. I remember listening to a little more. I don't even think we got through the whole song, and his brother comes in the room. What the hell are you guys doing? Shit. And, you know, he was like a badass at the time, you know. You wouldn't think, you know, you didn't have that term then, but that's pretty much what he was. And I really thought he was going to beat the shit out of me. I'm like, oh man, my life is going to, I just listened to this kick-ass new band. I'm going to die right here up on Grove Street in our town. And to my surprise, he said, oh, you like that? And I'm like, yeah. I'm like, that it's fantastic. And he said, well, do you want me to make a tape of it for you? And I was floored. I'm like, absolutely. So, I mean, here's a Kiss fan early on, I'm going to say it was probably 1977 at the time. And I'm thinking, that was awesome. Like, here's an early Kiss fan that gets it. He wasn't pissed off at us. You know, he was mad because we were in his room. But, like, he was more than happy to share his band with me. And, JD, if you're out there, hey, horns up for you, buddy. What's your first Kiss album there, BC?
First Kiss album was Love Gun, which I bought at Ames department store, if anybody out there remembers.
Hey, if Ames doesn't have it, you didn't need it.
That was the big thing, going to the record store at Ames. Most younger kids wanted to go to a toy place or something else. I went right to the record section. I said the word record, yes.
Yeah. Yeah, vinyl, those big black discs that are coming back, you know, and I know you're a revived vinyl collector. I myself have not gotten back into it because my wife will absolutely kill me if I start collecting another thing.
Expensive.
Yeah, go along with my like 800 to 1,000 CDs. I really don't need to start another record. Although I do still have some. It's not something that I'm going to start collecting again. CDs is what I like now, and also. I'm not a downloader either. I want the CD, the physical CD in my hand.
I agree.
So that's pretty much where we're at with our influences and that. We just wanted to give you a little taste of who we are, where we're coming from. You mentioned Cheap Trick got you kind of away from Kiss in the beginning.
Did it take me away from Kiss? It was just Kiss, Cheap Trick, then Van Halen, and so on into the early 80s when there was such an explosion of our music, you could say.
Oh, absolutely. And I remember I used to hang out with my buddy Rob Kelleher, who will be a future guest on our show. And I met him through Kiss and through my cousin. They were starting a band. You know, no one could play any instruments or anything, but, you know, they were going to be called Space. And I was we all lived in the same neighborhood, and I was riding my bike, and they were talking. I could hear Kiss playing, so I went up, and they were talking about having a band. And I remember that had to be 1980 by then, because Unmasked was out. They were fighting over who's going to sing Is That You? And, you know, ultimately no one ended up singing Is That You, because, you know, it didn't go anywhere other than a fleeting thought, you know, and that's how I met Rob, was through that. And we were big Kiss fans, and we used to put on Kiss concerts for the kids in the neighborhood, charge them $0.25 to get in, and, you know, use packs of matches and all this flash powder and flash paper for our concerts and stuff like that. And how we didn't burn his house down, I don't know. And what got us not away from Kiss, like you said, but like listening to someone else, was Rob's sister had Van Halen 1. And I remember, you know, we dropped the needle on that, and you hear the and like, what the, that sounds like a spaceship landing or something. And then you get the boom, boom, and then you get the little and then it kicks in, and that was another changing moment there, because then Unmasked was good, but it wasn't really a Kiss album. What's your quick thoughts on Unmasked?
I agree with you. It was not one of my top Kiss records.
I mean, I think it's kind of taking a little revival, like a lot of the Kiss podcasts. I know the guys on Podcast Rock City, they're big Unmasked guys, and it's kind of growing back on me a little bit. You get older, your music tastes change a little bit, and I'm kind of getting back to it a little bit. And those guys are big on the song Naked City. Going back, listen to it, I could see that. It's a good song. You listen to the bass in that song, and it's fantastic. Once we got into Van Halen, and then, you know, all the other bands started rolling in.
Motley Crue was the next thing for me, which I went to a Motley Crue opening up for Ozzy Osbourne back in, I want to say, 83, Bark at the Moon tour. I had to lie to my mother. Sorry, Mom. Said I was going to an Ice Capade show instead of a rock concert. So when you're 13, back then, 13 was a kid. Not like it is nowadays.
Do you think she believed you?
At the time, I believe she did. I mean,
we'll have to ask her. Maybe we'll get her on the show one of these days. We'll get her. We'll get your mom on there. And
I can remember going to that, and that was my first live experience, and I was totally hooked from then on.
You're a music fan, you know, listening to this stuff, but once you see a band live, you're really, really hooked. My first show was Jim Polkowski, our friend, is a major Maiden fan. He was at the same show I was.
Yeah.
I believe it was April 13th, 1983. We saw Iron Maiden, Fastway and Coney Hatch down at the Allentown Fairgrounds. And that was an iconic show for Iron Maiden. If anybody listened to the B-sides of Iron Maiden, it was the infamous Mission from Ares song where something got screwed up and the guitar solo got elongated or something like that, and they had a huge fight in the dressing room after the show, and someone recorded it, and they released it as a B-side on one of the singles they used to put out, the big singles that had all the different cool covers, like 2 Minutes to Midnight and
the big 12-inch.
Yeah, the big 12-inch singles. So that was really cool. We didn't know that till years later, till I read the Run to the Hills book, and I was like, holy shit, we were at that show. And of course, I don't remember, the solo getting screwed up or anything. But it was great. I mean, it was my first live show. I went with my buddy Rob, my buddy Chris, Rob's brother-in-law Paul. He drove us down there, and that was when shows were general admission. You could just walk in and, if you wanted to sit, you sat. If you wanted to stand, you stood. And we were 20 feet from the stage, like, holy shit, there's Steve Harris. And like, wow, he's like singing all the songs along with Bruce Dickinson. Like, cool, Bruce Dickinson telling the stories about the songs. And they did To Tame a Land, which is still one of my favorite Maiden songs. And, Peace of Mind is obviously my favorite Maiden album. So with that, we are going to just do a quick little down and dirty top 3 of our hard rock and or metal bands between me and BC. BC, give me your third. And obviously this is right now, not set in stone. No one's grading us on it, but just what do you got? I'm
going to say number 3. Currently, I would have to say Warrant. Picked up the new CD, which is very impressive.
Amazing.
Very impressive. The more you listen to it, the more you're going to like it.
That album is excellent, and we've met Robert Mason, the lead singer, and Joey Allen a couple times, and we've had a couple little quick conversations with Robert Mason. Really super nice guy.
Super nice guy.
And he just absolutely kills it on that album. For those of you that don't have it, pick it up, buy the CD, buy the download. Support these guys that are out there. And the CD's name is Louder, Harder, Faster. It's fantastic. It is. There is not a bad song on there. Okay, so I'm going to go to my pick of number 3. Right now, I'm going to say it's Iron Maiden. I think they're always going to be in my top 5. I mean, they're absolutely my favorite British band, my favorite band other than anybody in the United States. Like I said, my first concert, I'm always going to have a soft spot in my heart for those guys. Bruce Dickinson, how about him, VC? He just gets better and better.
Better and better with age.
Their last album, Book of Souls, double album. Who does that? Double studio album anymore. You really don't see that. But if you listen to it all the way through, there's not really any crappy songs that you would, say, what, they could have just left that one off there. It's fantastic. And what I like about Maiden now with the 3 guitar players, Dave Murray, Adrian Smith, and Yannick Gears, you could hear each guy individually. And when they start the solos in the songs, you could tell which guy is playing which part. They're just an amazing band. We got to see them on the Book of Souls tour. Not this time around. The last time we saw them at the Garden, we had really, really shitty seats. We were, up in the nosebleed section. But, I mean, still a fantastic show.
We could have been in the basement. It would be a fantastic show.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Imagine seeing them in a basement. That'd just be, like, you couldn't fit them in a basement, but it would just be, like, off the scale. Seeing those guys, any of these bands in, like, an intimate setting, like in a club or something like that. It'd just be crazy. It's crazy. All right, we both got 3. How about number 2? What do you got? What do you got for me?
Yeah, number 2, like we just talked about, Iron Maiden, to me, has always been a constant steady throughout the years, even when they weren't popular throughout the rest of the hard rock world. I always stuck with them.
Speaking of Maiden, they have the 3 main singers. They had Paul Di'Anno for the first 2.5 albums. You have Iron Maiden, Killers, and Made in Japan you had. And then Bruce came in, obviously, at Number the Beast. He was there through Fear of the Dark, I think, was the last one with Bruce before he left. And then we had the infamous reign of who?
Blaze Bayley.
Blaze Bayley, yeah.
I might get some slack for this, but I was never a Blaze fan. Sorry.
Yeah,
nothing against the guy. I guess he'd have fit Iron Maiden if you ask me.
To segue into another discussion at another time, he's like kind of the Vinnie Vincent of Iron Maiden. He just didn't seem to fit
in.
The first album they had with him, The X Factor, I believe, was a very morose album. I mean, Iron Maiden's not singing about sunshine and rainbows and all that kind of shit, but
turned me right off to Iron Maiden. I'm sorry.
They downsized where they were playing at that time because I remember they played smaller venues. I mean, now they're selling out Madison Square Garden. You don't really get any bigger than that in the United States. Back then, I think they played maybe Radio City Music Hall, maybe, if I'm not mistaken. X Factor, like I said, Morose. Virtual 11, which was the next one. I like that album. I can listen to it. There's a couple songs in X Factor that I like Lord of the Flies and Man on the Edge. Man on the Edge is really good. Sign of the Cross is really good. But Sign of the Cross is so much better. You can tell how much better it is when you hear Bruce sing that on Rock in Rio.
Steve Harris, if you're out there listening, please go back and record those 2 albums of Bruce.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Hey, and while you're at it, go back and just for shits and grins, record the first 2 over again. Why not? You know, just we'll do the whole catalog with Bruce and let the chips fall where they may. And then, miraculously, year 2000, after Bruce had several solo CDs, which were excellent, and actually, I believe 2 of them featured Adrian Smith on guitar. And you could tell it was back to the hard rockin' stuff that, you know, like, you're like, wow, like, these songs are great. Songs like Road to Hell and Freak, and, I mean, fantastic. And then Crimson Wedding, another fantastic album. Then they had that live album out that they recorded down in Sao Paulo, which was fantastic. Then, boom, lo and behold, miracles happen. Year 2000, new millennium. Here comes Maiden down the road with Brave New World. And with Bruce coming back, Adrian Smith also came back into the fold. So now you have 3 lead guitar players there. The 3 amigos. You can't beat it. You know, you got 2 awesome ones with him and Dave Murray. You throw Yannick in there, the 3 of them. You just cannot beat it. I'm going to go my number 2 band. We'll switch gears here a little bit. I'm going to go to Van Halen. Now, that's Van Halen with David Lee Roth. Sorry, Sammy fans. Sorry, Jen. I know you're a big Sammy Hagar proponent.
Dave is Van Halen.
Yep, it's not Van Halen without Dave. It's a totally different band with Sammy in there. You know, you can call it Van Hagar or whatever you want to call it. But it was a totally different band, a different feel.
Total different feel, in my opinion. I love Sammy.
Oh, I do too. I love his solo stuff.
Not saying that he's not good.
And there's some good Sammy Van Halen songs, but there's still not that party vibe to it. You know what I mean? It's more love songs type of stuff, relationship kind of shit. You know, it's not Bottoms Up or Everybody Wants Some or, you know, Mean Streets or nothing. You didn't have that kind of angst there that let's party or...
When a Van Halen song comes on with David Lee Roth, it's just instantly lifts your mood, makes you want to drink maybe a few beers.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and Sammy's a way better, you know, in quotation, singer than Dave.
Yes.
But Dave, I consider him an entertainer. I don't consider him a singer. You listen to him live, and he's just talking the lyrics through. I mean, the music is still great. The band is still tight. Although, sorry, Wolfgang, I would still rather Michael Anthony back in the band. He was the backbone of their backing vocals. You know, without a doubt. You know, and I miss him up there with his Jack Daniels bass. Throw it down and stomp the shit out of it. You know, you can call that a bass solo if you want to, but it was just cool. It killed time in the show. You know, it was you could watch it. If you didn't, it was a good time to go take a piss or something. Wolfgang, nothing against you. I mean, you're good. We saw Van Halen on the first reunion tour. And to me, if it's not the whole band, if the guys are still alive, it's not a reunion. I didn't feel it was a total reunion unless Michael Anthony was back in the band. That first tour, my wife and I went with friends of ours down to Philadelphia to see it. I mean, it was good. It was great. But it would have been so much better if Michael Anthony was there. What do you think, BC?
I agree with the end of that. As a subject to me, it's like it's hard to replace a vocalist, in my opinion, but some would say it's easier to replace a bass player. But when it comes to Michael Anthony, I don't agree with that. Or Steve Harris.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Well, Michael Anthony, he's the background vocals for Van Halen. He's that sound. When Gary Cherone was in the band, you know, the Van Halen 3 debacle, if you want to call it. And nothing against Gary Cherone. He's great.
Great with the Extreme.
Awesome, man. But just like Van Halen 3 didn't work. And just to put an exclamation point on that, when they toured for Van Halen 3, Michael Anthony was singing about 4 or 5 songs, like classic Van Halen songs, like Bottoms Up and stuff like that. Michael Anthony was the guy singing those songs. What does that tell you about how the mood was in that band at the time? Once Michael Anthony started singing the song, you knew they weren't really going to last with Gary Cherone. And then Sammy came back for a little bit. Finally, Dave came back, and they put out the awesome new album that they put out, which was pretty much all old demos redone. Which is fine. Hey, I mean, they were great songs. You know, like Stay Frosty, Tattoo, you know.
Very good, very good.
A lot of people hated that song, but it was catchy. It was all right. It grows on you after a little while. All right, I got VH there for number 2. Number 1, BC. Let's go. Sock it to us here.
I'm gonna go back to my steady bands in my life, and I'm gonna go with Megadeth.
Really?
They're my closet band. I've always been there.
Really? That's all right. Their new album, Dystopia, came out, I'm going to say probably came out year before last, maybe, because we saw them last spring down at the Sands Casino, which was a kick-ass concert. It was Havoc, Suicidal Tendencies, Children of Bodom, and Megadeth. I mean, yes. Wow, what a bill! Like Suicidal Tendencies, they were one of the bands that we never thought we'd get to see. You know, Mike Muir, the guy that was banned from performing in Los Angeles for like 20 years or something like that for inciting violence or whatever the hell. And even though he's not in Slayer anymore, which I'm not a huge Slayer guy, we had Dave Lombardo play drums for Suicidal Tendencies there. And he fit great, Wow, Megadeth though, you kind of threw me for a little loop there, That's cool though. I'm gonna go my top. It's gonna be Kiss for me all the time, all the way. I went through a period of time where the new incarnation of Kiss with Eric Singer and Tommy Thayer, as the Spaceman and the Catman. I was down on that for a while. I recall watching the show that they had on Access TV, the show in Switzerland, and watching the guitar and drum solo thing where Tommy shot the stuff out of the guitar and then Eric had this bazooka, and I just thought that bazooka was like the most stupid fucking thing I've ever seen. And I wrote this big rant on Facebook about it. They've grown on me. They have. I was not mega into Kiss at that time. I was kind of away from them because of that and other reasons. They've grown on me, but I was down on Kiss at the time. And I don't so much retract my statement on Facebook, but I've, grown to like it. And when we get talking here with Rob, we have an Eric Singer story also that didn't help matters. And once we get into Kiss albums, some people, my intimate friends, know which one of my favorite Kiss albums are. I'm not going to reveal it today. And people are going to go, what? And my buddy Rob's he's like, you're nuts. And I have a phrase that I say, and some of my friends will know what that is already. But and I seriously want to get it on a shirt. And I seriously want to get it on a shirt. And I'm going to give one to my buddy Rob. And I'm going to say, you have to wear this on the cruise. I think he'll get a chuckle out of it. And Kiss is my favorite band. I got to say, I know I have a lot of married friends. I know a lot of married people. My wedding song was Forever from Hot in the Shade. The wedding time came. What song do you want? She said, I know a lot of songs, but not a lot of names of songs. So I said, well, how about Forever by Kiss? And she was familiar with that because I'm going to get some Kiss in by osmosis just by being around me. So that was my wedding song. So some people I've heard have had that, which I think is cool, So that's our top 3. So I'm going to go through real quick. Give me your best album. Warrant.
Dog Eat Dog.
Dog Eat Dog, wow. You're throwing me for a loop today here big time. You're like, all right. Good album. Real good album.
Very good album.
Okay, I'm going to go Maiden, Peace of Mind. Absolutely. I remember when that was coming out, I remember the ad in Billboard magazine. And I'm sorry, Miss Bamba, but I tore the page out of the Billboard magazine.
Damn you.
And took it home with me. It had a full page ad in Billboard magazine, and my career is a firefighter, so is BC, but I have a second job. I work in a library, and now that all you library people out there, sorry, I did deface the magazine. I tore the page out for the ad for Peace of Mind. It had them sitting at the table with the brain there and on the platter and everything like that, and I just, I had to have it, and I did. Sorry, everybody, for my little sticky fingers there at the time. Okay, BC, number 2, you got Maiden. What do you got for me?
It was Number the Beast.
Number
the Beast, and then followed up by Peace of Mind, of course. Number was just a little bit more...
I could see that.
Grabbed me a little bit more. I don't know why. I don't know how to really put it into words.
And I do have to say, BC's got an awesome Number of the Beast tattoo on his arm. Looks really cool. And he's got Megadeth on. He's got Vic Rattlehead on the underside of it too. And he's got the Judas Priest symbol on the total underside of his arm. So he's got Maiden, Megadeth, and Priest on his arm. How much more of a tribute to metal can you get than that? All right, so we got Maiden out of the way for both of us. Warrant, VH for me. I'm going to say Van Halen 1, because that was just my initial boom. But it does lean towards Van Halen 2. The only thing about Van Halen 2 is the production, I don't think, is as raw. I think it's produced a little more. I'm actually reading the new Van Halen book that came out by this guy, was their road manager. He said when they recorded Van Halen 1, it was recorded like in 3 weeks, and it was recorded with Michael, Alex, and Eddie in one room playing, and Dave in a booth singing, and it was pretty much recorded live. They didn't encourage mistakes, but they said they sure as hell didn't fix any. So a lot of the little squeals and shit that you hear on there, I guess, are not intended to be in the song, but Ted Templeman, which I think was brilliant, just to let them be themselves, let them play. And for them to sound like that is just phenomenal, because you get some bands like, you know, for as much as I love Kiss, listen to the production of the first 2 Kiss albums. Like, you hear them live, even back then, you're like, and then you hear the studio albums, you're like, it's not the same. They didn't capture the rawness of them, where Van Halen 1 actually captured the rawness of the band. And I think that was a big attraction of Van Halen. Just that party atmosphere, the rawness of it. If Dave didn't remember the lyrics, he'd just, hey, blah, 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 you know, whatever, woo! Right through you. Yeah, and throw a woo at the end there. Okay, so we got our other ones out there. So Megadeth, what do you got, favorite Megadeth album?
I have to nail it down to Rust in Peace.
Rust in Peace. Now that one I knew you were going to say. Me personally, I would have said Cryptic Writings.
For newer Megadeth, I would lean towards that too, but old school Megadeth.
I mean, the new one, Dystopia. I mean, that's no good slouch either. They have the new guitar player on Dystopia, Kiko. I want to say Loreno. I'm sure I butchered the name. He replaced Chris Broderick on guitar. Chris Broderick was phenomenal. I think he was a little too technically precise. Kiko seems a little more loose playing.
Just rip it up.
If you want to really know the power of Megadeth these days, just listen to The Threat Is Real on Dystopia. There's a riff in the middle of that, and I don't even know who's playing the solo over it. Just the riff in the middle of that song during the solo is like fucking phenomenal. It tears it up. Good call, Rust in Peace. I figured you were going to say that, but it does have their most well-known songs on there. You know, the ones they, Hangar 18 yeah. Holy Wars. I Love Lucretia on there. Tornado of Souls. I mean, great song. So my number one for Kiss, for that favorite Kiss album, is a sliding scale. It slides around depending on what I'm listening to. But I'm going to say Love Gun right now, because that was the first Kiss album that I actually owned. I had the one that my buddy's brother recorded for me, Destroyer. Rock and Roll Over, I didn't get that till not way down the line, but BC's favorite personal Kiss song is on that album. What is it?
Mr. Speed.
Mr. Speed, right? Because he always says, that's why they call me BC. He takes out the Mr. Speed part. Yeah, so I didn't get Rock and Roll Over till, much later. I mean, the only thing on Love Gun, Then She Kissed Me, that song just is like a fucking nail in my head. I could picture them singing, and then he kissed me, the original version, and I'm like, why would they do that song? Like, why?
I hated that song. I still do to this day.
I know, and that's the only song on there that I skip. We're going to discuss in a later episode the Gene Simmons solo thing and songs that he's done and stuff like that, and I'll get into that at that time. But my number one Kiss album is definitely, right now, Love Gun. There's our down and dirty top 3. We did albums, we did bands. Like we said, this is a sliding scale, and this is just our first episode, so bear with us.
Work out the kinks.
Check us out. We're going to be on iTunes. Check us out on Facebook, Podder Than Hell, Podder Than Hell podcast. If you want to reach us, email us. It's podderthanhellpodcast@gmail.com. We will be having a YouTube channel, so you can check us out on YouTube. And we're going to work on getting on Spreaker, but right away we're going to be on Facebook. We're going to share the link there, and iTunes. Check us out on iTunes. Subscribe to us. That way we can know how many people are listening. If there's a topic you want to hear, you want us to talk about, give us a note. Drop us a note. Let us know. For now, we're going to sign off episode 1. Just to let you know, this episode is being produced by my son, Dylan Wright. He's awesome. He's bearing with us here in our craziness. We're going to sign off. So, everybody, rock out, man.
Peace out.